In this lesson, we'll be discussing padding and margins and how to use them effectively to give your component some space. So to start off, as normal, we're going to draw a little design that we want to build for this lesson. Starting with our screen, what we're going to do is a standard design where we have a toolbar at the top, we have a sidebar, let's just make it a bit nicer, a sidebar over there, a content area, and then two components inside the content area. Let's make them like this. Alright, so as normal, we'll start on the outside and build our containers. So we have our single page already. This is going to be vertical, so one on top, one on the bottom. This one will need to be horizontal, it's just the bottom one. There's the sidebar. There's the content area. This will be horizontal as well. And then the two pieces of content inside. Because now that we have all our containers done, let's do the flexing and let's give them some colors so we can see what's going on also. So the bottom one will need to be flexed. Then this one will need to be flexed inside the bottom one. Then let's give this one a width so you can see it. Let's make it 400, 600, and this one will flex next to it. Now our colors. This is the top toolbar. Just make that light gray. Actually, let's make that blue. Let's make the sidebar, which is this one. It doesn't have a width yet. We need to give it a width. Just make this one white. Then the content area, which is this one. And then let's give both of these a color as well. Alright, so we can currently not see our top toolbar. That'll be because it doesn't have a height. So let's give that a height. There we go. Right, so currently we can't see the light gray, and that's because it's behind these two. So we'll need to start giving padding and margins now to fix that. Just make this a little bit less high. Alright, so from our design you can see that everything inside the bottom div is surrounded by some space around all of this. So normally when you have that, you'll start off by giving padding to a component. So the difference between padding and margin is that if you have a component, if you have a container or anything, padding will give space on the inside there, meaning that any child components will have a gap between them and their parent, and margins will give space on the outside. We'll discuss margins shortly. So we could have done this by instead giving all of these margins, but it's normally best to start on the outside and give padding wherever possible, then sort out all the rest with margins. So firstly we can see we have obviously padding here on the bottom component, which is this one. So to give padding to containers, you can just define padding true, which will assign default padding. We see that padding over there. Let's give the sidebar a different color for now, just so we can see it properly. So now we can see we have padding around those. Before we specialize the padding, change the padding size, let's just do all the padding first. So the next thing we need to do is we can see from our design that we also have padding inside this component. We can't give this space right now. We'll have to do this with margins because there's no way we can assign padding to any component that will just give like a little gap over there to this one. So first we look at components that have kind of global padding around all their children. That's what we're doing now. So we've done this one, now we'll do this one. It has padding all around. So that's the content area being this one. And then we see our light gray components over there. Now immediately you'll see that we need to still sort out the um, this gap over there, and all the rest looks pretty good so far, I think. But maybe before we look at this gap, let's look at padding sizes first. So once you've given padding true to a component, you can give padding size as well. So by default, your padding size will be the theme value padding. If you look inside your global theme, you'll see there's something called padding normally. Currently it's 36px. So let's change the padding from 36px to just 24px, the value being medium padding. So we can specify medium padding. Let's do that for both of the components we have given padding to. Now, instead of 36px around all of these and 36px around all of those, we have 24. There you can see it becoming smaller. We're also able to give specific padding sizes to all the different axes, the top, right, bottom, and left. And we do that by, instead of defining it this way, we define it as top, right, bottom, left. So now for the main component, you'll see we have top and bottom padding, but not left and right. So it's top, right, bottom, left. So there we see our top padding of 12, bottom of 12. It's a bit hard to see probably in the video, and left and right being 0px. So this is called these are called shorthand properties. We can also specify 12px, 0px. This is shorthand for vertical and horizontal. So this means top and bottom should be 12 and left and right should be 0. So we should have the same effect now. You can also mix px values, percentage values, viewport dimensions, and theme values. So we could do, we want small padding vertically and big padding horizontally. Or we could have split it up as big padding. Let's make it 48, let's make it 100px. So then we have small padding vertically and 100px left and right. Other component types don't need padding true. Only components that are container types, like container or container simple, need padding true. If we were to specify a label, for example, we don't need padding true. We can just specify padding size immediately. So the next thing we'll do is, let's just fix our padding sizes. I think let's go back to, let's make a medium padding again for both of them. The next thing we'll do is sort out this gap between the content area and the sidebar. So to do that, we need a margin. And often with margins, you won't specify a global margin. You'll just specify a margin in one dimension. So let's find our content div. It's this one. And we need to define a margin left of medium padding. Now we'll have a gap on the left-hand side outside the components, which is what we want, of medium padding. You can see that reflecting. Let's say we wanted to change this design slightly. We want our, just get my brush. We want our viewport, toolbar top, still some padding around our sidebar. But now for our content area, we do want that gap there, but we don't want our children to have padding around them as well. We'd rather have them look like this. So one over there, with a margin over there. Just imagine this is a margin, not an actual component. that. So now what we need to do is we need to remove the top and the bottom padding, as well as the right. Oh, we still need to sort out this one as well. We'll do that all together now. So let's remove the top and bottom padding from this content div. So we have padding size of medium padding. Now we just want left and right. So we'll have 0px, so top and bottom will be 0. And we still have medium padding left and right. Left and right. Well, I guess we can remove the left and right as well. But what I'd like to show you is, because in this instance, how things are working out, we can remove the left margin. Now we have that space over there still. Going to move the one on the right. So now we just want padding of medium padding on the left hand side. So that's top, bottom, left. Oh, sorry, top, right, bottom, left. So now I've removed the margin. We still have that padding over there. And we can give a margin to the screen one as well. Let's do the margin right instead. So let's put a margin on the red one, right margin. There we have that displaying. So what's important to note here is that even though we could have achieved the same thing with paddings or margins, it's always possible to do it in multiple ways. The smartest way is to start on the outside and work your way in, as we did first. I would not define this as a good solution, because we now have this content area over there that's not part of this. We can't control the space we have over there without modifying this components over there, meaning that the space that's available to this component will change if this margin changes. It's always best to keep your spaces that aren't inside components outside your components. Meaning, if we have a component like this one, and we just get a bit smaller, if we have a component like this, it's best to start on the outside and give your padding first. Let's do this in red. Give your padding first before doing the bit that you have left, which is this one over there, instead of starting off with margins. So instead of saying, okay, I want to give space to this one, so let's give margin top, right, bottom, and left, and this one margin top, right, and bottom. Doing margins first will always give you a more complex solution than using padding first. Another use case for margin is when you have components with shadows. So how that works is, if you have a component inside a dashboard, the component needs to have a shadow on the outside, which is a property we haven't discussed yet. If you do not specify a margin for this component, so if you don't give some space on the outside, you won't be able to see the shadow. So let's build a little example of that quickly. Let's do our single page. Let's center our content. Let's put another container inside it. And let's give this one a background color of white. Yeah, white is fine. This one will be white as well. Obviously, we can leave that out. Now we can specify has shadow true. And we can give a size to this one. Otherwise, because it has no content, we won't see it. So there we can see our shadow, which is exactly what I said we wouldn't be able to see. So let's go look what's going on. Alright, so because there is space available for this component around it, we can see the shadow. if we add another component next to it, let's do that. You'll see that the shadow is being cut off over there. It's probably a bit hard to see, but the one shadow, the bottom shadow, is going over the top component. So by default shadow, I think this you'll see this in no, we won't have it over there. Please excuse me. So by default, this I think the shadow is about 4 pixels. So what we normally do is we specify a margin of 4px. That'll give us enough space for each component to have its full shadow visible. There you can see the shadow is. You can see both components have a 4 pixel, which gives enough space for both shadows. There'll be many cases where you have components on top of one another, where they need shadows. Also, in some cases, with regards to giving component sizes, it'll use all the size, and outside of the component, the parent component didn't afford enough space for the shadow, which is when you need to define a margin as well. What's important to note is when you do start defining margins for shadows, you need to be a bit clever with your padding as well. To explain that, I'll illustrate that with a drawing. So if we have a dashboard with, just try and make this a little bit more square. If we have a dashboard like this with two components on top of one another, we add now. First we have the issue with we need the 4 pixels, so then we give each one 4 pixels margin to make sure that you can see their shadows. But then another problem that comes in is if you want a bigger gap between the two components. So if you want to, let's say, medium padding between these two, we could then go margin left of 18 px, or sorry, medium padding, not medium gray. Let's just change the direction. There we go. Now, in many cases, we'll have a problem where, because you're defining margin twice, the order of properties might become a problem. In some cases, it might not, but it's always best to start combining your properties. So because we have 4px, meaning 4 pixels all around, and we have medium padding on the left, it's better to combine that and say we have 4 pixels on top, 4 pixels on the right, 4 bottom, and medium padding on the left. It's just a much cleaner way to do it, and it means you'll have more control over your dashboards, and they'll just be more maintainable in general. Lastly, I'd like to mention that it's mostly better to use theme values instead of pixel values. Instead of defining 24px, try and stick to theme values as much as possible, because if you do that, they can be centrally controlled from your theme. The situations in which you wouldn't use theme values are cases where you want to have pixel perfect alignments for some components, specifically icons. Well, very often you'll have to give some very specific 1 or 3px padding or margins to icons. Margins to icons, or padding to their containing the parent containers, to make sure that icons line up properly to other components.